Hattab. I'd like to welcome you out to our question and answer classes. We've been having these classes every week. You know what I'm saying? Since we're in New York, all over the world. We've been having classes since 1963, 67, all the way up to 2014, where you can ask any questions that pertain to our doctrine, which is Wu-nuwaup, which is our spiritual doctrine to deal with right knowledge, right reasoning, and right understanding that leads to sound right reasoning. Because when you go to the religious people, they don't answer your questions. They say, well, God can only answer that question. So all the questions that you asked them, they couldn't answer, they didn't answer, this is what we do. So we ask all questions, you know what I'm saying? So anybody got any questions? The mic is open. If not, we'll just go to the online class questions. Hattab.
My question is about the soul.
Yeah.
Is it something that can be changed, or is it just that's just you? Period. Your soul is like it's something that can't be purified. It's just your soul is just your soul, and that's it.
What are you asking?
About the soul. Like,
Yeah, but say it again. I mean, I'm trying to.
Can it be changed? Like how we got disagreeables and agreeables, or does that have to do with the soul? And can it be something that's changed or altered?
It can be taken.
Your soul. Yeah,
but it can't be altered because it's like you said, it is what you are, right? But you got to understand that when our master teacher was breaking down in the book called With Soul and Spirit, we got caught up with the concept, because you got to remember, we're speaking English, you know what I'm saying? This is something that we always got to reiterate week after week after week, that you don't really get the essence of what it really means when we say, I'm about to go into Arabic, ba. I'm about to say ruach, you hear me? Ba is the Egyptian word for soul. But what happened is when we was explaining what the ba was, they couldn't find a word in English, right? They could explain what really the ba was, right? So the closest word they found was the word soul, right? Which means wind, like the word ruach, which means when. This is why the master teacher was going into the semantics or the etymology of these different words that we learn in English. Because people say, well, soul and spirit and my soul, and you know, but the animals display forms of soul also. When you see certain dog get ran over, the dog start crying. I said, but wait a minute, you told me the animals didn't have soul. But this animal is displaying some type of emotions. Now we're in the game of saying, okay, soul is associated with emotions, and the next thing that we're saying, the game of emotions is associated with rhythm. You know what I'm saying? So it's like we're stuck in the English, right? It's like the word spirit is ka. We know in ancient Tamil it means to animate, to give life to something, right?
Sure.
But we talk about spirit. They talk about, well, when you die, your spirit goes to heaven, but that's not a physical form. Because spirits are sitting in heaven with robes and sitting on the right-hand throne of the Father and milk and honey. You know, I didn't know spirits had any use for milk and honey in black-eyed maidens. Because you have people that put C4 around their bodies, jump on airplanes and buses and blow up and say, I'm going to paradise with the black-eyed maidens. What type of spirit is that? You feel me? So, as a being that exists in higher vibrations, right? Or a different existence, or, you know, what you call alternate realities, right? You know what I'm saying? Or parallel universes. Your soul is the etheric or the energy part of you that exists in another form of existence, as what you call plasmatic matter. You feel me? But what happened is, because you need to survive here in the physical plane, which is a slower vibration, right? It needs to slow down the vibration. It needs a physical bacteria body to actually function on this realm, right? But the spirit also plays a part to keep this body animated, you know what I mean? But what happened is, you sometimes willingly sacrifice your soul or sell it, right? Now you can't leave, because you'll need that energy boost to take you from this realm of existence to another state of existence. And you can't make the transition because of you forfeited. Well, I'll sell my soul for this. I don't care. I want the Rolex. I want the Bentley. I want the Bugatti. I want the hose. I want the mansion. You know what I mean? I want the cars. I want the, you say, I don't care what I got to do to get that. And you forfeit that. This is what the Caucasian wants. He wants that because it powers certain things. And they can actually use that against you to power that white magic. You feel me?
Sure.
So it's when you change you forfeit your soul. Because you say, I don't want that, I don't want it. I want this. This is why I said for weeks, months and years, right? And the other teachers that spoke also about the concept of I do what I want to do. Yeah, anybody familiar with that concept?
Sure.
You hear me? It's wickedness. Did you know that? Ask me why I say that.
Why you say that?
Because when you say I do what I want to do, right? You are allowing yourself to do anything that you want, whether it goes against nature or not. Because you're not looking at the big picture. Everything I do deals with consequences, right? And you're destined to do certain things because you said, I don't have to listen. And when you watch the news, you watch the videos, and people have this mentality that I can do what I want to do. I'll shoot you in your head and I won't have no remorse because I can do what I want to do. I don't have to listen to you, officer. I do what I want to do. I'm a grown man. That means you're out of control when you make those statements. I do what I want to do. Okay, what is it that you want to do? I can do what I want, when I want, right? Which is true, you do have the choice to do it, right? But you still have consequences, right? Now you're going against other people's natural nature, because some people say, I don't want to do what I want to do. I want to stay in order. I'm a Christian, and I want to follow the laws. I'm a Jew, and I want to follow laws. I'm a Muslim, I want to follow laws. Even with the religious doctrine, they still have what you call guidelines, or what you call commandments or laws, do's and don'ts. You feel me? So when people want to say, I do what I'm going to do, they're going outside the law of what the religious doctrine got them under. Then they go against man's laws that he had for the land, because have anybody heard of the movie called The Purge?
Yeah.
Raise your hand if you heard The Purge. Have anybody seen The Purge? Raise their hand. Was that a good movie to watch?
I don't know about that.
It was interesting.
They were going against the
And
law.
it lets you know what's going on,
But-
like how people feel.
So when people say you do what you want, actually that movie's about you can do what you want for a certain amount of time, right? And what happened?
Killing spree.
It was chaos, right? They had a movie called The 100. You ever heard that TV show? Where they came up, they got kicked off the craft, these juveniles, these prisoners, right? And they was on Earth. And what happened, they had certain rules and regulations on the spaceship. If you create petty crimes, you get sentenced to death. Because what happened is they have a population thing where they had to have a culling. Anybody familiar with the word culling?
Yeah.
Culling is where you have too many people, you have to, look, there's 800 people on the ship, but we only have 300, we only have food and water and supply for only 300 people. If you keep feeding all 800, we won't survive in 6 months. But if we keep it down to 300, we can survive for 2 years until we get more supplies. What would you do? Now you have a choice. Die in 6 months, everybody die, or take out certain people so the other 300 can live, they can keep on repopulation. It's called population control. The planet Earth does with population control. The planet Earth does with natural culling. If there's too many people on the planet Earth, what does the planet does? It comes up with diseases, famines, what's the other thing? Earthquakes. It creates natural things to take out certain things to keep balancing it so that way the planet doesn't become dead. Because if you eat up all the natural resources on the planet, then the planet start dying. This is what happened on Mars. You feel what I'm saying? All the natural resources was used up, and it's like we can't do no more. Right now in America, you can barely farm in America because they destroyed all the farmlands in the 1920s and 1930s because they didn't know about crop rotation. They kept putting the same stuff in there. There's so much because the industry was supply and demand to the point that they didn't get a soil chance to recover. And then when they finally figured out what crop rotation was, they couldn't plant on the ground because it became unfertile. You feel me? So the person on the show came down that we can do what we want to do. We don't gotta listen to them, and we don't. You know what I'm saying? To the point it was chaos. So people, how you gonna eat? We do what we want to do. We ain't gotta hunt. You go get it. Now you want people to work for you, but you say, I do what I want to do. You feel me? So it was like they was killing themselves already. It was like they was already signing their death warrant. Because if you say, I do what I want to do, then go hunt, go do this, go that. Oh, I don't know how to do that. Because if you would spend time and deal with order, you would have gone to school, learn a trade, so you can survive. But when you do what they want to do mentality, it's called useless eaters. Eat, sleep, and watch TV. They don't want to do anything. They say, oh, I don't feel like doing nothing. How many people have relatives like this that sits around and don't want to do nothing? They feel that you're obligated to take care of them. And if you say, I don't want to, they get mad at you and get an attitude, and they call you all type of names. Even after all the stuff that you have done for them, then when you finally get tired of taking care of them because they become a hindrance, and they're bringing you down to the point that you're going to become homeless, taking care of some bum in your house, they get mad at you. You feel me? So the do what I want to do mentality does not work with nature. Because nature doesn't do what it wants to do. Nature does what it needs to survive. It does what it needs, not what it wants. So we do what we need to do, but not what we want to do. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, my next question is pertaining to Egypt and Ra. Can you give me some about who exactly Ra is?
He was a human being that was associated with the sun.
And that's it?
I mean, he was a scientist.
So who came first? Was it Ra or Osiris?
Osiris. You said Ra or Osiris?
Yeah.
Ra was older than Osiris. That's his grandfather.
Okay.
They're related. You know they were human beings, right? Huh?
So,
See, let me tell you what the problem is. Mystical. Everybody familiar with that word mystical? Everybody say mystical. Right? I'm sitting in the house. There's music playing. Right? It sounds very relaxing. I got incense playing, light it up. You can smell the house euphoric. It's a nice setting, right? The lights are dim. And I'm sitting there in the lotus position. And I appear to be floating. It's called mystical, right? It looks beautiful, right? This is every religious dogma. It's about the mysticism, right? You know what I mean? And our mystical school is a little different. These are just normal stuff that we did for concentration and meditation, you know what I mean? But people took that and ran with it and called it spirituality, you know what I mean? And what happened is when we down with that, we deal with our ancient ancestors, right? We're starting to associate our salafu with their perception of mystical is. Ra, you hear me? The sun god. And it sounds powerful, and which is actually good for us because we have very bad inferiority complex, right? But we have to still deal with reality. He was a physical being. He had children. You hear me? He was the grandfather of Osiris, and what's it? Grandfather of great-grandfather of Osiris, right? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And what happened is he was associated with the sun. Like today, people say, "Oh, you low down, dirty dog, Anubis." Oh, she pussycat, but you know what I'm talking about. Bastet. You hear me? Oh, you is a rotten snake. You know what I'm saying? Apophis. So, the Lamb of God, Jesus. You hear me? The Lion of Judah, Jesus. You see what's on that now?
True.
This is called anthropomorphism. Certain things of nature was associated with human being because of the way the relationship and how they dealt with certain things. Like they said, you slick as a fox. You're not an actual fox, but you was associated with it. You feel me? You understand what I'm saying? You call a woman a B-I-T-C-H. But she's not that, but it's the nature of what it is by definition. You hear me? So in ancient times also, every culture always related it to a certain animals. Oh, she's so finicky that it's a cat. You hear me? But it's not the actual animal. Oh, this guy is hot as fire. Doesn't mean he's fire, but it's a certain thing that's going on. I mean, it's real anger. You hear me? So over time, they just took this stuff and made it more mystical. You hear me? So, any other questions? I hope that answered your question, though, right? Huh? But Ra was a master in his day and time. He was the master of his tribe, which is the Enneads, which will be Osiris, Isis, Nebhat, Satuk, what's the other one? Nut, Geb, Tefnafaf, and Shawal, and Har. These were the bloodline of the 9 Enneads, which you call it, what's the word for that? Enneads is Kamanu. That's a Camino. That's an 8, ain't it?
The Camino.
Yeah. It was one of the words. It's a word for it. I'll get it later.
All right.
Yeah, go ahead.
These are some of the online questions. This is the first question is from a brother named Naeem Sharif. And Naeem says, he wants to know, he said, what were some of the things that stand out the most that the master was teaching on the last day before he was kidnapped?
He said, what was the one that's the master?
What are some of the things that stand out the most that the master teacher partners there, Amun Reactor, was teaching in the last class before he was kidnapped?
He was talking about the arrival of the Messiah. If anybody will remember that, and that's why I think it was a part 1, part 2, was a cassette tape called The Arrival of the Messiah, where the master teacher was talking about in the end game, which is the end time, with the 2,000-year sun cycle, moon cycle going out, and the sun cycle coming in. The master teacher was talking about how the being, Har, Re, Akatri, was supposed to come back and incarnate in the flesh. This is why all your religious organizations were being taken out simultaneously through scandals, because they couldn't come at you from doctrine for doctrine. You got to look at it like at the time that Elijah Muhammad, who was a master in his day and time, a master teacher in his day and time, who was the incarnation of the extraterrestrial teacher named Krill, who was a Ramardian, you know what I'm saying? Or even when you went to the Noble Drew Ali, the Honorable Marcus Garvey, Dusali, all these different teachers that would serve a purpose. I think it was one of the updates we talked about the 7, right? And also before that was Muhammad al-Mahdi, Ahmed al-Mahdi. He was talking about the 7. And these when it led to the hearing of our master in his day and time, Master Pt.1 and Nun. You know what I'm saying? So what happened is that they couldn't go to doctrine for doctrine without exposing their doctrine. Because when you start attacking these guys' doctrine, okay, what is you attacking it with? You gotta have a foundation of what is your teachings that you come in, or you're just a person who said, well, I just don't like. And you sit there and try to disprove it, like all these people that's online that's trying to say 300 questions asking the whopping. But how can you ask us questions when our doctrine is living? It doesn't stay in one spot. It constantly changes. So you'll go to our old questions and it sounds like it's contradicted, but the doctrine changes. It's a living doctrine. It doesn't stay in one spot. It's like it's a nature. Anybody understand what a nature doctrine is? Huh? Do anybody understand what a nature doctrine is? Yes or no?
You mean like a doctrine that's based off of like natural human life?
Natural nature.
Yeah.
Meaning that if you live in the desert and for hundreds of years it never snowed, and one day it snows, does it change the environment for that second?
Yes.
That means everything changes. But snowing inside a desert will be formed as a form of contradiction because it's not supposed to snow in the desert. You hear me?
No.
So what were you about to say?
No, I was going. When you said that, it reminded me of an example that the master gave with the Quran. You know, when he said in the Quran, there's a verse where it says you will never see the sun and the moon share the same
Exactly,
star.
back then, but now you see it now.
With processional change.
That's a change in nature.
Yeah.
So what happened is with a nature doctrine, right? A nature, that means that it changes. It changes the environment. It changes everything. So people say, well, it snowed in Egypt. No, it didn't. What is the snow? Last year, if I'm not mistaken, it snowed in Egypt and the pyramids were covered in snow. Now, if you would say you was to record that thousands of years ago, no one would ever thought it ever snowed in Egypt. But it had snowed in Egypt numerous times during the millenniums. You know what I mean? But we never saw it because they never wrote it on the wall. But you had to actually, in 2013, witness the pyramids being snowed on, covered with snow. Right?
Yeah, I saw that.
With a nature doctrine, right, which is Wu-nuwaup is, it goes according to the nature of the beings that accept it. You feel me? Because you could be of a different species, a different nature, and you would deal with Patrak or the Wu-nuwaup. You know what I'm saying? People try to put Wu-nuwaup in a box, and you can't do it because it's a living doctrine. You know what I'm saying? So wherever Wu-nuwaup goes, it will have to assimilate to the environment that where it comes from. You feel me?
Sure.
It's not, you know what I'm saying? It's the absolute information of the universe, but it's not absolute as if that's it. You got to look at the word absolute. They have so many different definitions for absolute. It could be this, it could be that. But the whole thing is that we're still speaking English. I had to format certain questions and answers the way it's written, the way we express it in English. So with a natural doctrine, right, you were under the spell of Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. Our master, Pt.1, the master teacher in his day and time, had to format Wu-nuwaup. Do y'all understand what I'm about to say? He formatted it where it was able to bring you out of those spells because your mind was stuck in Christianity. So as a Christian, your Messiah will be known as Jesus. In Islam, your Messiah will be known as Muhammad or Isa, right? In Judaism, your Messiah will be Moses, right? So that means that in order for me to bring you out of it, I had to take you back into the natural doctrine of the planet, which is in ancient time, all these doctrines, God, that came from a being called Har Amun, also known as Har, the son of Osiris or Asaru, and Isis or Ashtat. You hear me? Because that's where the original story came from. Because you're not in that state of mind, right? You have to go back and the master had to give you what you want, which is the religion that you're under, so you can want what we had to give, which is the original story or Wu-nuwaup. Because if you have a different nature, he had to change your polarity. He had to change your way of thinking, the way you think, the way you feel, the way you act. You hear me? Because you still act like a Caucasian, even though you're dark. You know what I'm saying? So the whole master teacher, he'll have to bring the doctrine, and as a surgeon, he had to perform mental, spiritual, and physical surgery on you, mind, body, and soul, to bring you to a certain level, right? So you can understand your nature. You feel me saying? So the Wu-nuwaupu is a natural nature doctrine. You can't put it in one spot because it keeps changing. And when people say, "Oh, y'all said this, and it's a contradiction," I said because our doctrine ain't like that. It's never like that. It moves. And when we were Muslim, Christian, and Jews, it was this a beginning and an end game. When we was Christian, it was in the beginning game, Alpha and Omega. But Wu-nuwaup is everlasting, it's forever.
All right.
That answer the question right there?
Yeah. Here's another question. It says, the master teacher, Pt.1 teaches us as Nuwaupians that the Kakasu Salau is actually the albino Dravadu. So exactly when and exactly how did the Kakasu Salau go from having brown skin or dark skin and black hair to having pale skin and different color fur?
In the book called The Ghost, you got that book up here? All right. In the book called The Ghost, now repeat that question again so I can get a better grasp on it.
Okay, he says, the master teacher Pt.1 teaches us as Nuwaupians that the Kakasu Salau is actually the albino Dravadu. So exactly when and exactly how did the Kakasu Salau go from having brown skin or dark skin and black hair to having pale skin and different color fur?
In the book called The Ghost, right, you got to understand that when you're dealing with evolution, right, you have dominant and you have recessive genes. You feel me? So many generations, right, you know what I'm saying, you have a recessive gene that come out, different species on planet Earth. You had the albino tiger, you had the albino alligator, you have albino roaches. So everything, polar bears, you know what I'm saying? So in dealing with, evolution and then dealing with different things and species, stuff like that, it always had a recessive gene that came out of it, right? So when you look at the Dravidian, right, or the Wu-nuwaup, these are the beings that came from by way of the Aborigines that came inside Australia. They migrated to a place that you call India. And when the Makasu race, or the Nordic race, they came from the Platonians mixed in with these beings, they created your Hindu race. You know what I'm saying? But the Wu-nuwaup race was a mixture between the Kushite Bushmen people, or the Kusan and the Nubians, right? You know what I'm saying? Ancient Nubians, or the Patais, right? Who mixed in with the beings that came from Aldebaran. And some of them came from Orion. That's why we have a book. Is that an actual fact that's coming out, Saneb? The Bigfoot, that's the actual fact, right? There's a book coming out, I think it might be out this week or so, but it's called The Bigfoot, and it actually ties and pieces up everything you need to know about these different mixtures. You know what I'm saying? That book right there is so precise that it shows you each different mixture of how they mixed in with the apes and the shaggies and the different. And when you look at it, when you read that book, you ever seen a movie called Prometheus?
Yeah, sure.
You see you can see in the movie Prometheus where they're getting the whole formula of the crossbreeding. How they had to mix in with the engineers to mix in with this slime snake thing to create
and how they see
this subspecies, and the subspecies infected a woman and created a zombie type being, but they created another being out of her that actually came into contact with the engineer again to create another being, which you call the alien. So what happened is in ancient times, when these extraterrestrial beings were coming down, right, you got to remember that the beings that came out of the water were not black. They were green. You understand what I'm saying? Because they had magnesium in their body. You know what I'm saying? Which would be like the plant form of what you call chlorophyll. You know what I mean? But what happened is because inside of the 23rd chromosome called the Wahoo, right? The beings and the daughter put their genetics in it, right? Because they knew that this being was going to evolve and they come out of the water and become a mammalian. but it was an aquatic being that evolved into a mammalian being because of what they put inside the DNA. This is why in a book called Actual Fact Number 22, 18 plus 18 equals, what is it, 18 equals?
36 chromosomes.
36 chromosomes, because that's what I was talking about, the chromosomes, right? The Anunnaki and the Natharu were breeding in with the women that were on this planet right here, and what they did is they put an infection inside of them. One of them was just called Makuzet, and what the Caucasian Pleiadians were doing was called a thing called leprosy. They couldn't, the Natharu were able to perfect the being, but the Anunnaki couldn't, or in the Pleiadians, because of the leprosy that was coming, that the infection of the leprosy, they couldn't latch in onto the what you call the replication centers. So they went to Egypt and asked them, look, show us how you did it, right? So Ptah and Sakumet showed them how to get the sticky ends to latch onto the circular chromosomes, you hear me? And then when they did that, they was able to put their genes inside this Adamite race, the ready race that was here on the planet Earth, you know what I'm saying? So you're dealing with different species of crossbreeding, right? Crossbreeding. Like it's like you got. I give you an example. You got the white man, right? The red bloody race. Then you got the other being right here, right? There's two different species. They mix in, and they give birth to another species.
A hybrid.
Right? Now this right here might mix it with this one and create a new species of a combination. This one might mix with this one and create another species of a combination. Now that combination might go back and mix with this one and create another sub-race. Then this one might mix it with that one, and it kept going on and on and on. Dude, we talk about thousands of species of humanoids. You hear me? Not pure humanoid species, but hybrids. So this is why I'm looking at this guy. He has a Fulani Malian look. You got a Nigerian look. This guy got a Wolof look. You feel me? This guy right here can actually pass over like an Igbo from Nigeria. You know what I'm saying? Everybody has different features. But the combination, the thing that they got you was they changed it and said, oh, I'm going to call this Arab, which is really an Indian from East India and Pakistan. I'm going to call him a Portuguese. You hear me? Or I might call him a Spaniard. Or I might call him a Roman. Right? And then they'll mix with an African that is in South America and Dominican Republic. You know what I'm saying? And Cote d'Ivoire. You feel me? And next you know you're creating this new species, right? A Brazilian look, or a Ghanaian look, or a Belize look, or a Mexican look, and you can find that same feature in East Africa. You hear me? Because it's the same species, but they gave them a different name. The Indo-Arab that came in from Yemen mixed in with the Oromo, the Nuer, the Dinka, the Nubian, you know what I'm saying? The Khoisan. And next now you're looking at the same combination. And they say, hey, are you from Brazil? No, I'm actually from Lebanon. Or I'm from Libya. Or I'm from Algeria. I'm from Tunisia. I'm from Morocco. Then if you go to Puerto Rico, they think you're Puerto Rican. Or if you go to Mexico, hey, are you Arawak? Or you're Azul Aztec? You know what I mean? Or you Mexican? So it's the same look. They did different names. Cuban. People say I'm African. I'm Cuban. I'm Spaniard. I got a little I'm Spanish in me. I'm Cuban and Dominican. You talk about a nigga that speaks Spanish in 3 different regions, because that's what a Cuban is. A black Cuban is nothing but a nigga that speaks Spanish. When you go to the Dominican Republic, it's a nigga that speaks Spanish, and when you go to Puerto Rico, it's a nigga that speaks Spanish. I got a little Puerto Rican, a little nigga. That's the name of the island. Cuba is not a nationality. It's the name of the island. Dominican Republic is one side of, and the other side is Haiti. One side was controlled by the French, the other side was controlled by the Spaniards. But both the French and Spaniards are number Caucasian, because you wouldn't even know they were from France or Spain unless they opened their mouth. You wouldn't know a Jew was Jewish until he opened his mouth. So you don't even know the difference between the 6 kings, because they all come from the same genetic, breeding. You hear me? So this is where the spell comes in. This is why we read a book called, our master teacher wrote a book called Set the Record Straight, because he goes into the different species of tribes and nationalities and break down how stuff is all made up to put you under, oh, he's Puerto Rican and she's Latino and Hispania. Spaniard. I mean, it's the same place, and we speak Spanish, but the name of the place is called Spain. That's why they call it Spanish, but they actually spoke Greek. But Greek comes from Latin. That's why they call it Latino. You hear me? It's the same language. They say more and more and more and more. In these three different countries, the more means love in all their languages. Italian comes from the word Roman. Roman comes from what? Greeks. That's what they call it, Greco-Romans. They just broke off from Greece and they have the same structure, the same pantheon, the same god. Jupiter, Zeus, Apollo, Aphrodite, and what was the other one? Aphrodite is how the Romans say it, and Venus is how the Greeks say it. No, Greeks. When you say Aphrodite is Roman, and when you say Greek is Venus. When you talk about the goddess of love, you know what I mean? So they had the same names.
Just changed.
It just changed them up in the same pattern that just changed it up, and they got it from ancient Egypt. You know what I'm saying? So wait, let me go. Now, when you go in the book called The Ghost, you must know that what spirit is to you. What Akkad ether is, what Nawar fire is, what a Tayath ghost is. In the birth of Pa Muras, the leopard, by the spirit forces at the 6 months of gestation period in the Caucasoid womb. And when the Korengi enters the body as sparks of fire or little Ka spirits being called fairies. Fairy Korengis, fair-skinned, colors, white, transparent fire beings enter the womb of Caucasoids at the 6th month. Fair blind fairies, fairish, white, pale, and snow white. These are the roots of their spirit forces, and they call their mother the fairy, god, or guard mother. You hear me? Fairy, a small elemental being with white magic power. Fairies outside their homes, they put fairy lights, lamp, fire, outdoor illuminations. Their heaven is a fairyland. Their religions are fairy tales. Their angels are fairies. So what it does, the incarnation take place with these fairies. So what they're saying is that in the 6th month, when the fairies or the white magic or the white beings hit that gene, it causes that being to become white. In the book called Man from Planet Risk, it breaks down how when the different beings come down, they will have to activate the pineal gland to activate the melanin. If they don't do that, they will come out ghost white. This is what happened to the Hindus when the certain fairies hit their body at a certain point, and certain beings who was not melanin compatible, that had melanin in them, or they call sun heat genes. In the book called is it a book? Oh, it's right here. In the book called I think it's boy, I start picking these little book notes. In the book, it was talking about how the sun heat genes causes and burns your skin black. You hear me? From within. This is why the master teacher said, you have a light in you. When you breathe, you feel heat, right? When you light up match, it takes in what? Oxygen, it gives off carbon, right? When you breathe out what? Carbon, and you breathe in oxygen. They call this a solar plex. Because what? Your body's at 98.6 degrees. When you die, your body becomes cold. You hear me? So they talk about the inner sun in you, or what you call Anun. You know what I'm saying? This inner sun. You hear me? The black sun that's in you, that gives off heat. That's why when black people get around each other, they draw heat. You hear me? So what happened is you had a gift that was given to you by your ancient Natharu ancestors. You had birth of Earth. You know what I'm saying? And what happened is, and this gift was the melanin, which you call the sun heat genes. And what the sun heat gene does, it scorches your body, your skin black. You know what I'm saying? With the help of CR46 chromium and what's the element chart for carbon? Carbon 6. You know what I'm saying? This was something that they put in you so you could be able to survive here on this planet right here and be the most dominant being on the planet. You know what I'm saying? So when you came out of the waters and lost that magnesium, right? Your skin was brown. And when the beings mixed in again with you, again, even though your genetics came from them, right? You got to remember that when these beings created you, they couldn't survive on this earth, right? So what they did is they planted the gene inside of a being that was actually more suitable to this earth, which was a draconian, a Megano, a reptilian type being, because this was a reptilian planet. And these beings were not bad. They actually were very divine, spiritual beings, and they were actually looked at and benefit. They actually wanted to look out for humans. You know what I'm saying? But the other species that came out of them, they're called the troglodytes. They were flesh eaters. They were both from Maldak. But the dragon race is the beings that was in the waters in ancient times that you know as the Agdogs. You know what I mean? When these beings, or the Megana, or the serpent people that from the waters were here, the beings from Risk, the native Riskians, mixed their genetics with this being so they'd be able to survive on this planet. This is the Avatar story. You hear me? You can't survive on Earth, so they had to create an avatar for you to actually survive on this planet. You feel me? So what happened is when these beings came out of the water, they already were green, but they lost the magnesium because they was evolving into something else because they had become mammalian beings. So when they lost it, it was replaced with iron. When iron on a molecular level mixes in with water, it causes a rusting appearance, a brown. And what happened is with the sun heat genes already inside of you, it made that brown darker to the point it was almost black. Because the beings that came out of the water were a brownish color. You call them the Khoisan or the Bushmen of South Africa, Southern Africa. You know what I'm saying? They're one of the oldest tribes on the planet Earth. And what happened is when the Wu-nuwaup mixed in with these these Bushmen, it gave birth to the tribes that you know as what's the ones at the Adam Island? Jawaras. You know what I'm saying? Which is another combination. And another combination. This is the different species that we would talk about months ago in class, how the original species were creating other species in Africa. So every one of these different tribes were not really original species, but they were crossbred through other species to create new species in Africa, which possibly the master teacher would talk about the 9 species that you talk about in Africa. You feel me? So now these beings were black. This was a gift. Other beings didn't have that ability, so they had to mix in with you. So any being that came to Earth that had any genetic or genetic problem, they would go into Africa, kidnap the Africans that came from out of waters to correct their genes. This is what the Overlord Enlil told the Caucasian race. Any problems, just go to them. They got good blood. This is a question they asked in class not too long ago. How did they know? Why did they want them? Because the blood was the cure. It was the fountain of youth. It was the elixir of life. The black blood is what the Caucasian have been waiting for. The most precious thing on the planet Earth is actually the blood that come out of Africans. It's more precious than gold because gold can't help them, but it helps us. Because we have gold on a molecular level. It's in our blood. This is why we don't age quick. You feel me? But what happened is the Caucasian knew this because their overlords told them any problems, you can just mix in with them and correct it. This is why they kidnapped you from Africa to bring you over here for blood. They were, like our master teacher said years ago, these guys are vampires. The Vulcan Empire. Any other questions? Did I answer the question? And with that, I'd like to pass class over to my brother, Amun-Re Atun.
Hi, Tep, sir.
Hi, Tep. Okay, this is the last question from Naeem Sharif. He says, would it be safe for me to say that we as Nagaru Salau have to realize that as much as we try to teach our people, that some of them are never going to come out of the mentality and ways of the Mukasu Salau? And would it not be safe for us not to take them back to Africa with us? We say like he quotes one of the give a quote from Marcus Garvey. He said Marcus Garvey once said that I have no desire to take back all black people to Africa. There are blacks who are no good here and will be no good there in Africa?
That's a very good question. Let me ask you all, what do you all think? Y'all heard the question?
There's no right answer, no wrong answer.
Well, I agree. Africa's not for all black people because they wouldn't know what to do over there.
Okay. You said there's no right answer and there's no wrong answer?
Yeah, on the basis that, as human beings, we don't know all the answers. And so for us to say that a black man cannot go back to his home is the same reason. Like, that's like saying any man can say that, like, just off of the basis that men decide that rule. It should be the choice of any man to make his, if a man has a will to go, he should go. It's his free will. You shouldn't be the one to say, you were no good here, you were no good there. Like, that's like saying, if you took a king out of his throne and put him somewhere else, you were good here. Can you do good here? He may not be any good at any place other than his throne. So there's no right or wrong answer to this one.
Okay. The only right answer would be, within the nature of that particular being. Meaning, change is constant. That's what we teach as Nuwaupians, and change is the most and the only consistent thing that we do know of. So you can't say within this person or this being, like you said, he's not fit to go back to Africa, when we ourselves don't know what Africa, what we're going to be faced with, what befalls us when we get there. The thing is that we are in preparation, though, to live as a cultural people and a cultural body, and we will know that we are ready and that we were prepared by following what we've been given here. For if we can survive here and knowing that they do not respect culture here, but they do respect culture there, we do have a better chance at survival there. All of our leaders, at the time in which they taught by what they saw and the interaction with their people and what their people needed at the time. In this day and time, we had to be sent a supreme being, one who was born and grew into that supreme being as a seated entity, one who was channeled and made connection with his ancient ones since birth, and had to be taught, you know what I'm saying, by different masters that was allowed to come through as a mediator. We could not have anything less for this day and time. We had to have what would fulfill us as a remnant, as a seed that was basically had to be raked or combed, being fine combed by the times and the different changes that we have been through to say what would be fit for survival there. It's just like getting in the ring. You could train, but you do have a better chance at a better fight to stand up against what you're faced with than to run. You know what I'm saying? All right? So the thing is what I'm saying is that Wu-nuwaupu is preparing us for the best or the worst of all situations that the Kakasu that he has put us through. He has created a black devil, but it took over 400 years to create that black devil. And a lot of us, you can't say that that won't change because that was by conditioning. By what elements were placed, you know what I'm saying, before us to say, this is your only choice.
So in regards to, the whole damnation of, the black race by people in power, because you can't, if you look at it from an intelligent point of view, like, it wasn't just the white man who damned us. Sometimes it was our brothers, who sold us out. But at the end of the day, you have to look at it from a point, like, can we save people from both sides? Can we save our brothers? And can we save people who aren't our brothers? People who want to be our brothers? Is it too far-fetched?
See, you have a good subject there. There is a being that can do that, that has a capability of doing that. But that is, you know what I'm saying, the mission of Wu-nuwaup is to defeat the devil. And that is not, you know what I'm saying, in the sense of some spookism. I say devil in a religious term, most of all might be coming from religious backgrounds. But it's really to defeat the disagreeable that is abundance and overwhelming on the planet at this time. So it's very important for us to think positive and to move in positivity. You know what I'm saying? For Nuwaupu, that's all it gives. It gives answers to problems. It gives right knowledge to problems, which is definitely a difference. Because you can have knowledge, but if it's not the right knowledge, you're wasting time. He's cutting straight at the jugular vein. He's cutting the heads off, as we used to put it. He's taking the heads off, and that's it. He's breaking the cross. You know what I'm saying? He's kicking over the domes of Islam. You know what I'm saying? It's no joke. So he knows what it takes for us. That's why it took a spiritual master like himself to be a reincarnated entity who has come many hundreds of times for the sake of our lives, to have other entities, other spiritual masters to work through him to give us what we exactly need in this day and time. So it takes a lot of time for that he put and sacrifice, staying up late, letting his body be controlled by these different masters at will, and trusting in, you know what I'm saying, Ray and the other Natharu that work through him and other spiritual masters of different days and times with different records of history, as to say, for lack of better words.
So find, like,
Wait a minute. Give me a moment. What you have to understand is that all you see that's in black skin is just that, black skin. You're not looking in the depths of what is the energy that's within. There's only two types of people on the planet. See, you have to raise your consciousness. We're no longer in a racist game. You have to raise your consciousness to know what is agreeable and disagreeable. You know what I'm saying? What is hatred and what is love. And these attributes will save your very life. Because you have to treat people as they come. Not by historical events. You know them by historical events. So therefore your caution and your guard or your guard is up. But yet and still, what is before you may not be an action. You can't say it's because a Caucasian stepped in here. He's in here just to tear us down.
that's all I'm saying.
Hey, no, wait a minute. Listen, I didn't say what you're saying. I'm letting you know what you need to know. And the thing is that you can't say if a black person walks in here, he's in here to show us love. You have to give it time. And he taught us patience. And he taught us how to deal with people as they come. And if they want to come, they better come right. That's just the bottom line. For the knowledge in which we are given is going to be the truth, nothing but the truth. So help us, Nataru. That's just the bottom line. We're not going to play the game, your skin is my skin, so therefore you're my brother.
Right.
It's too late in this day and time for that. You have many different tribes, and a lot of them are disagreeable. You do have tribes of Africans over there. You do have leaders in Africa that are slewing and slaying their own. But we're not there for that. We'll set the record straight what is dealing with us. And when you put yourself under the banner and the flags of Wu-nuwaup, then your family. And that comes first. There are protections up under us, physically, mentally, and spiritually. And when we start to do that, then we become gods. When we start to implement the sciences that he has given us, then you see the better part. Like he said, he wrote this book and he received this book called the Holy Tablets all the way from 1966, you know what I'm saying? Strange year, when the beast was being born and reincarnating, up to 96, when it was revealed to us. All that information was gathered for us. In the reality in there's a portion that says, if you read all of this, and you know it is true, and it reveals itself by research, science, languages, maps, dates, and you know it's true, but you choose to still stay within the ignorant life, you are nothing but a black devil. Now people slip and make mistakes because we got great forces that have come against us and planted themselves within us in our very blood. By rape, you know what I'm saying? And also by ignorance. Environments that we have been in and so forth, that we attach ourselves to. But yet and still, there are people who will not accept that. Wu-nuwaup is a science that lives. It is living. It is like unto an entity. It can repel you or accept you. Your chromosomes in your body, in your DNA, is a repeating cycle, a tumbling of genes that is taking place. And in this day and time, some of the genes are spiraling up and others are spiraling down. Some are becoming monkey men. The animalistic nature is more so attached to them or attracted. And then those who are spiraling up, for lack of better words, the God or the Nataru in them, that they are attracted to. They're ready to sup or sit with the elders or the ancient ones. And this is what we're faced with. So when Marcus Garvey said, he said 75% of us won't make it. He was speaking the truth. But he was talking about the Negro here, of what he can see. He saw a lot of fears. You're talking about 1922. Talking about an element that they did not want around. He was raw. He spoke truth, you know what I'm saying? And he spoke it fierce. He didn't speak like no punk. He didn't speak soft. He spoke strong. You could go on YouTube and find a video of him speaking. He is speaking strong. He's speaking, telling us to get up as black men. Take care of our responsibilities. He tells us that we should have our own science, our own language. Everything he spoke about was the pre-coming of Pt.1 Yanun and everything that he gives us in this day and time. But all the leaders said we should know thyself. So they spent much time in teaching us the knowledge in which they can gather in their day and time about us. And of course, they had their battles to fight then, you know what I'm saying? And each one that they lost or won was studied by the next. So therefore, here we are, a collective whole. All those leaders have come and gone, and those who are still trying to hold on to old doctrines, and not to step on anybody's toes. But if you're in this day and time, and you're talking about Africa, you're talking about us as a people, you're talking about us being raised as gods, then no longer do we need to look and dress like a cockasoo. We could speak our own language. We could eat our own foods. We could have our own values. If anything was to happen to the Wu-nuwaupians that are in this room, and they say somebody was to break in their house, and they were to come home, what would they be looking for to make sure it was not taken? Exactly. Where's my books? See, we got our own values. And we have to have our own value system. Because the knowledge, as he taught us, is where the